The first presentation we will have this afternoon is on exactly what was decided on reporting and verification in Warsaw. And who better to explain that to us than Thelma Krug, who is the head of the International Cooperation Office at the National Institute for Space Research, also known as INPE in Brazil. And I think most of you know her as a UNFCCC climate change negotiator, which she has been very heavily involved in the process for many years. Thelma is also been the general coordinator of Earth observation at INPE and has a background in spatial statistics. So she's very well positioned to give us some input on not only what happened in Warsaw, but also perhaps on how we can start implementing the agreements that were reached. Thelma, you have the floor.
I think that the organizers have been very courageous to invite me to a 10-minute talk in this panel, but I'll try to do my best. Oh my God. So I'll tell you when to start counting on those 10 minutes. So anyway, it's very challenging to say what happened in Warsaw. But in particular, I think that we should start with this, what was then called the Warsaw Framework for REDD+. So in our understanding, it defines all the rules for REDD+. Finally, started the discussions in 2005, and then in 2013, finally, after so many years, to understand that the rules for REDD+ have been agreed. So that we, in our view, this concluded the negotiation cycle for REDD+ and initiates a new phase, now focusing on the implementation of the multilateral rules that have been agreed, in particular for results-based payments. So Warsaw was an astonishing thing. I didn't really follow all the REDD+ discussions because I was engaged in other issues as well. But I myself was very amazed to see that in Warsaw, 7 decisions. It took so long, to get to something, and then all of a sudden in one COP, you get 7 very important decisions. And these decisions basically are summarized here. Some of them, like the ones I have highlighted in blue, the first one basically in the financing. I was astonished to see the big size of the paper of the decision on that and how little time it took for that. And then other in terms of institutional arrangements, but the ones that I would see more relevant for the discussions at this panel are the decision on modalities for MRV, for measuring, reporting, and verifying, and the guidelines and procedures for the technical assessment of the submissions from parties on the reference emission levels and emission levels. Let me say, I'm going to say only reference levels, okay? Because otherwise it's going to be taking 5 minutes only to refer to the first reference, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so when I say reference level, you know what I mean. And also we had agreed in Warsaw modalities for the National Forest Monitoring System. And I highlight is less important, although it's not less in terms of the importance to the whole process, in terms of a decision addressing the drivers of deforestation and forest degradation, something that was back, I think, to Copenhagen, the first time we highlighted the need to address the drivers as well. So if I go back to my first, going back in my first slide, I will start with the reference levels. So as I said, in Warsaw, the guidelines and procedures for the technical assessment from the proposed reference levels from parties have been agreed. I'm calling this the decision X because they do not have numbers as yet. So all the decisions are going to be referred to XCP9, but the ones on MRV specifically, I'm going to say MRV decision XCP9. So why is that? That's basically because in the decision 12 CP17, part 2 of this decision, and also in the annex of that same decision, we have the guidelines for the submissions of information on the reference levels. And basically, as you know, the reference levels, I'm cheating now, okay? The reference, why I'm cheating? Because, I mean, everybody's so careful with the language we use in this negotiation, so I'm extremely, touchy with that. So I'm going to cheat a little bit here. But as you know, the reference levels are the benchmarks to assess the performance of each country in implementing the REDD+ activities. So the decision 12 CP17, which I mentioned here in this first slide, recalls that developing countries may, on a voluntary basis, and take care of these words that I'm going to say now, on a voluntary basis, when deemed appropriate, and submit their reference levels, and these might be technically assessed in the context of results-based payments. So the decision decides that the reference levels should maintain consistency with the national greenhouse gas inventories. I hope the panel can, at some point, pick that up. There are some problems understanding what this means. So for those countries that are trying to do something with the reference levels, it was my first call from Brasilia. What does this consistency mean? There are different understanding and interpretations what we mean here with that consistency. So the panel should possibly highlight that. So it also agreed that decision with the stepwise approach is something useful, and also that the subnational reference levels could be elaborated as an interim phase. So the annex to the decision that I mentioned here, in the decision 12 CP17, presents the guidelines for the submission of the reference levels. And this includes information that was used in the construction of the reference level, including the historical data, description of the data set, approaches, methods, models, relevance, policies and plans, pools and gases, definitions of forests. So the guidelines was pretty much developed in the decision 12 CP17. But as I mentioned, it says in that decision that the proposed reference level voluntarily submitted by the party when they deemed it appropriate might be technically assessed. So basically in Warsaw, what we achieved was these guidelines and procedures for the technical assessment of the proposed reference level by the parties. So to me, as a first step to the process of REDD+, I don't think that anything starts really without the reference level being set, because it's the benchmark on which you're going to base your results. So that was absolutely fantastic to have achieved that. So now, let's see. So now going now to the decision on the MRV more specifically. So I'm not going to go into those details, but since these are going to be posted somewhere in the CD-RED website, okay, not somewhere, I tried to be as elaborative as I could in the slides, but I'm not going to be elaborative here, but focusing on the main points. So this decision, I think paragraph 1 says that measuring, reporting and verifying for REDD+ should be consistent with the methodological guidance provided in decision 4 CP15. One of the things that Kevin and I, where is Kevin? He's not here anymore. Yes, one of the things that Kevin and I were discussing is the complexity of these decisions as we go, because they all refer to something there in the past, and it's very nice when you have at least one person that has been following. But, becoming old, you always forget. But, following up the whole process to have a full picture moving. So all these decisions refer back to other decisions. And so this is really hard to catch up. So we should possibly have a brochure, summarizing all these recollections of previous decisions. So it says that it has to be consistent with the methodological guidance provided in decision 4 CP15. In that, I tried to pick up some of the points in that as well, which provides the methodological guidance for the activities related to REDD+. And it's in that decision 2 CP13 it also makes mention to the drivers, and this is why that the decision in Warsaw was relevant as well. It also makes mention to the next presentation that Kiyoto is going to make on the use of the most recent IPCC guidance and guidelines. And I hope that when the panel addresses this consistency with previous inventories, we address this issue here. Because developing countries are reporting using the 1996 guidelines, and they are encouraged to use the good practice guidance of 2003. So when we say that we have to use the most recent IPCC guidance and guidelines that has been at least encouraged, we are talking about the GPG 2003, and that most countries are not using. So when we talk about consistency with greenhouse gas inventories, there is a lot of some, how do we accommodate for this? Not necessarily consistent in terms of how we are reporting under the UNFCCC and how this requirement is going to be met to ensure the consistency. And also the establishment of the forest monitoring systems, which we all know. It always says that the MRV needs to be consistent with MRV for the nationally appropriated mitigation actions, the NAMAs as we know. Now, to just skip a long story, I think that I will focus on the process of MRV for NAMAs, because the decision 1CP16 decided that the developing countries should submit the BURs, the biennial update reports, and these are this is the place where we will place the updates on national greenhouse gas inventories and also information on mitigation actions, including the NAMAs, needs and support received. Now, the BURs are going to be assessed by what we call the ICA, which is the International Consultation and Analysis, and this is the process that has been decided for the NAMAs. Now, if we go into the ICA process, the International Consultation and Analysis, it consists of basically two steps, of a technical analysis of the biennial update report, and this is going to be done by a technical team of experts in consultation with the party, and they will also, have all the summary report, and also as a second step, it's a facilitative sharing of views, which have as input the biennial update report and a summary report that will be provided by the technical team of experts. So why I'm saying that? So that's for the NAMAs. So NAMAs are going to be in the BURs. The BURs are going to be assessed by the ICA. The ICA has this technical team of experts. But why am I elaborating on that? I'm elaborating on that because the decision for MRV says the data and information for RED on the activities and so on should be provided through the BUR. And as such, it's going to be assessed by the same process that the BUR goes through, with a little bit of a distinction, I would say. For those developing countries that seek to obtain and receive payments for result-based actions, only in that case, they would be also developing a technical annex that will be part also in the BUR. So in the BUR, you're going to have this technical annex. And what is the components of that technical annex? So these are the elements that should be in the technical annex. It's just simplistic. I just, simplified the language, but basically, you're going to have the assessed first, the assessed reference level, the activities that the party has decided to include, There is another issue for the panel, because we sometimes say that significant sources could not be omitted from the selection of activities by the party. What significance means is something that has never been elaborated or defined. So that's some of the elements that, you know, it's something that's not decided by the UNFCCC and might have different understanding on the implementation. The area, the date of the submission and the date of the final assessment report, the results, the methodologies used, blah, blah, blah. So you have several elements here, and I know the panel will concentrate on capacity building necessary to have this technical annex. The difference we are going to have in relation to the ICA process and the technical team of experts is that upon request of the developing country party that's seeking to obtain and receive payments for result-based actions, the team of experts would be composed also of 2 LULUCF experts selected from the roster of experts of the UNFCCC. And one from developing countries and one for developed countries, and they would be then parts of the TTE. And these 2 LULUCF experts would then be looking at this technical annex, which we mentioned before, and seeking to see if there was consistency in methodologies, definitions, comprehensives, and information between the results that are being presented by the party, and they assess the reference level, and this is the importance of the reference level. If the data and information was provided in a transparent, consistent, complete, and accurate way, and complete here has a different meaning than the IPCC completeness for the inventory purpose. Complete for the purposes of RED, plus means the provision of data and information that allows for the reconstruction of the results. So the data and information provided in the technical annex is consistent with the decisions previously agreed, and also with the guidelines provided for the annex, and that the results are accurate to the extent possible. I liked that inclusion because, as we discussed yesterday, what do we mean by accuracy? And if that should be an impediment for RED Plus proposals. So it has been then agreed that these LULUCF experts will develop a technical report. It's a very, very interactive process with the developing party that's proposing the technical annex. So it will be published by the Secretariat via the web platform, but it will contain the technical annex, the analysis of the technical annex, annexed by the 2 experts, areas for technical improvements that have been identified, and taking into account that there is this encouragement that parties evolve with time and improve their methods, data, methodologies, and so on. And this could also have a reflection in updating the reference levels that have been submitted. It's not something that is static. We are expecting that there are cases where this is going to be a dynamic process, so parties can propose updated reference levels. And also one nice thing which I thought this decision makes regarding this technical report for the evaluation of the technical annex is that any comments and responses from the parties are also going to be part of that. And Kevin, as we were talking and I was going to check, this is also true for the reference level. So comments from parties are always part of the reports to be produced, so that if they don't implement something, there is a clear and transparent process that indicates to the outside world why something was not implemented. But that's very much to the party to see. And then my final slide, as I said, I was going to be quite synthetic and picked up some of the paragraphs which I thought could be most relevant for our discussion here. is the one that is the last paragraph in that decision, and I quoted it completely here, that agrees that results-based actions that may be eligible to appropriate market-based approaches. This appropriate at some point in time in the negotiations had a footnote attached to it, but I think that Brazil and PNG agreed to remove that. I don't know what the deal was, but basically it did not recognize, for instance, some of the understood market-based approaches as being eligible. So this is why the appropriate is here. And this and so this says that results-based actions that are eligible to appropriate market mechanism may lead to the development of the specific modalities for verification, different from the ones that we have agreed in Warsaw. So when I say that we have finished the negotiation process, I'm partially true. I think there is room for additional elements to be discussed, including the reference to appropriate market-based mechanisms and potentially devising a different verification process for those potential appropriated market-based mechanisms that might be agreed by parties. So I think with that, Mate, with the 10 minutes that I had, I'm very sorry for this. I said that it was very courageous from the parties, but I think that this does, I think, entices some of the discussion also that I'm forcing in the panel. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and thanks the organizers for giving me the opportunity to reflect on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thelma, for this whirlwind tour of the decisions at Warsaw. We'd now like to continue a little bit in the same vein by talking about the potential role of the IPCC guidelines in verification of result-based RED. And with us today we have Kiyoto Tanabe from the Technical Support Unit and IPCC's Task Force on National Greenhouse Gas Inventories from the IPCC. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kiyoto Tanabe from Technical Support Unit for the IPCC Task Force on National Greenhouse Gas Inventories. And I'm going to talk about IPCC guidelines and the potential role of the IPCC guidelines in verification of results-based RED+. But actually, what I wanted to say has been already talked by Thelma, so maybe I will repeat what Thelma already said, but anyway, let me start my presentation. This is outline of my presentation. Firstly, I will talk about IPCC guidelines, and then COP decisions on RED+ and IPCC guidelines. But in the morning session, I already heard many participants already said repeatedly IPCC guidelines or IPCC methodologies. So I guess you are already familiar with the IPCC guidelines. So let me just quickly go through some slides. The first IPCC guidelines was produced in 1995, but it was revised twice or three times, and the latest one is 2006 IPCC guidelines. But at this moment, currently, all parties to the UNFCCC or to the Kyoto Protocol are using 96 IPCC guidelines and good practice guidance reports. And during the course of revision of the guidelines, the guidance on agriculture and land use sectors also have been changed and evolved. But I will not go into details about it in the interest of time. The IPCC guidelines were developed to provide internationally agreed methodologies for estimation of greenhouse gas emissions and removals from various sources and sinks. And the IPCC guidelines are expected to help inventory compilers to produce a high-quality national greenhouse gas inventory. In other words, good practice inventory that is containing neither over nor under estimates so far as can be judged, and also reducing uncertainties as far as practicable. And the important indicators of quality of inventory, there are 5, TCCCA, or TACCC, we usually call those 5 principles that way. Transparency, completeness, consistency, comparability, and accuracy. And some of these words are, as you know, included in the COP decisions on REDD+ activities. So now I'm going to talk about those key elements, key words or key elements in the COP decisions on REDD+ that are related to IPCC guidelines. Firstly, some COP decisions directly refer to the IPCC guidelines. For example, decision 4 CP15 says that developing country parties are requested to use the most recent IPCC guidance and guidelines as adopted or encouraged by the COP. And also, the same decision said that developing country parties requested to establish national forest monitoring systems, taking note of, if appropriate, the guidance on consistent representation of land in the IPCC good practice guidance for land use change, and forestry. This is GPG 2003. And also, COP17, decision 12 refers to the guidelines, IPCC guidelines, saying that the information provided should be guided by the most recent IPCC guidance and guidelines as adopted or encouraged by the COP. That way, IPCC guidelines are already directly referred to in some COP decisions. And also, indirectly, IPCC guidelines are referred to in several COP decisions. Firstly, a national forest monitoring systems. Developing country parties are requested to establish robust and transparent national forest monitoring systems that provide estimates that are transparent, consistent, as far as possible accurate, and that reduce uncertainties. All these keywords highlighted red are associated with the IPCC guidelines, and if you use the IPCC guidelines, you can achieve these elements. Reference levels, forest reference emission levels and or forest reference levels shall be established maintaining consistency with each country's national greenhouse gas inventories. This was already said by Thelma. This is written in the decision 12 CP17. And of course, national greenhouse gas inventories have to be produced in accordance with IPCC guidelines. This means, I believe, forest reference levels or forest reference emission levels should be established also in accordance with the IPCC guidelines. Also, developing country parties should update the reference levels or forest reference emission levels, update periodically, taking into account new knowledge, new trends, and any modification of scope and methodologies. In other words, a stepwise approach is encouraged. Oh, sorry. What's this? And for this purpose, guidance on recalculation provided in the IPCC guidelines should be useful. Also, the same decision, decision 12 CP17 refers to that the transparent, complete, consistent, and accurate information should be included in the submission of information on reference levels. And again, the IPCC guidelines help ensure that. And in COP19 in Warsaw, the guidelines for procedures for technical assessment of submissions from parties on reference levels were adopted. And in these guidelines, these elements were emphasized. The scope of technical assessment should include, for example, the extent to which the forest reference emission levels and/or forest reference levels maintains consistency with national greenhouse gas inventories, and also the other elements, as shown here, are included in the scope of technical assessment. That means, as I said in the previous slide, all these elements are closely associated with the IPCC guidelines. That means conformity with guidance in the IPCC guidelines may be considered in the technical assessment of these elements. Modalities for MRV and IPCC guidelines. According to the modalities for MRV decided at COP19 in Warsaw, firstly, the data and information used by parties in the estimation of anthropogenic emission and removals estimates relating to the lead plus activities should be transparent, consistent over time, and consistent with the established forest reference levels. And again, consistency over time, and consistency with forest reference levels. This can be ensured by using IPCC guidelines, because the IPCC guidelines provide a lot of guidance to ensure consistency. And parties are encouraged to improve the data and methodologies used over time, stepwise approach in other words. And again, guidance on recalculation and also time series consistency provided in the IPCC guidelines will be helpful in this aspect as well. In the same decision about modalities for measuring, reporting, and verifying MRV, some provisions are given about the technical analysis in the ICA process. As part of the technical analysis in the ICA, the technical team of experts shall analyze various things, including these three elements: consistency in methodologies, definitions, comprehensiveness, and the information provided between the assessed reference level and the results of the implementation of the lead plus activities. Consistency. And secondly, the data and information provided in the technical annex to BUR should be transparent and consistent, complete and accurate. So the technical analysis by TTE should assess also this. And the results should be accurate, and this should be also assessed by the technical team of experts in the technical analysis during the ICA. All these elements are associated, relevant to the IPCC guidelines or IPCC guidance. So again, conformity with guidance in the IPCC guidelines, particularly with regard to methods, data, information, and assumptions, may be considered in the technical analysis of these elements. So in summary, I believe that the IPCC guidelines may play a key role in the results-based lead process to ensure transparency, consistency, completeness, accuracy, and reducing uncertainties of estimates of forest-related greenhouse gas emissions and removals. Completeness is in bracket because, as Thelma already mentioned, here, completeness in the COP decisions is somehow different from completeness defined in the IPCC guidelines for inventory. So that's why I put it in the bracket. But other keywords, transparency, consistency, accuracy, absolutely this can be ensured by using IPCC guidelines. And that is the case in establishing national forest monitoring systems, and also in establishing forest reference levels, and also in quantifying results of the implementation of the lead plus activities. Also, IPCC guidelines will be helpful in taking stepwise approach because IPCC guidelines provide guidance on recalculation or time series consistency, and that will help many countries to improve their methods, starting from Tier 1 level to Tier 2 and Tier 3 over time. The improvement over time can be helped by the IPCC guidelines, particularly the guidance on recalculation part. And lastly, as I repeated, conformity with the IPCC guidelines may be considered as key in the technical assessment of reference levels, as well as in the technical analysis during the international consultation and analysis process. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will talk about some experiences from the CD-RED review process. And our speaker is Somogyi Zoltán, or Zoltán Somogyi, who advises on methodological issues and organizes the review process for the CD-RED project. He's been working in the climate change science and negotiations for almost 2 decades, and is an author of several IPCC methodological guidance. This is too late in the afternoon for me, and scientific papers, and he's on the roster of the UNFCCC's reviewers. Zoltán, please, you have the floor.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear colleagues, I'm the last one to have a presentation, which is fine, but I would not be content if we had to go home without discussing a little bit more details. An issue that we already touched upon, but I think that is very important. We have been discussing a lot about greenhouse gas inventories, and I think we all agree in this room that these inventories are useful because they inform policy making, they demonstrate success or failure of these policies. More specifically, they provide us with measures of results, and these measures can also be basis of trading climate change goods. Now, yesterday, all this boiled down to saying that you can only manage something that you can measure. Now, I would like to add something to that, which is that you can only measure, no, it's not here, interesting, okay, I will say it to you. You can only manage something that is measured accurately. I do hope you agree that it would be very difficult to manage something about which you don't have accurate information. Now, how can you make sure that your measurement is accurate? By the way, it would be more precise to use estimations, as most often we only estimate or rather guesstimate things, especially in the AFOLU sector. But I think the concept of getting things right is more important than the name. And experience suggests that one of the best ways to make sure that your estimates or measurements are accurate, if these measurements are independently checked. Examples, there are many. For example, a few years ago, a research group claimed that they identified a process in an experiment, the speed of which was larger than the speed of light. Now, if that was true, then physicists would have had to throw out everything out of the window that they knew about physics. And so all of a sudden, a lot of physicists started to independently check that claim about the speed of that process. And of course, it turned out that the claim was wrong. Also yesterday, we spoke about the emissions from charcoal production, and Sandro was saying that the IPCC guidelines provide accurate estimates. Now, the issue is not that Sandro is always right. Nobody is always right. The issue is that all claims should be independently checked. That has been a practice in science for about 300 years. And in the climate change process, this independent check, which is sometimes called review, has been integral part of many elements of commitments or pledges, or now we are talking about results, etc., etc. I put review in a special format to suggest that, okay, we might use all kinds of expressions for the same or similar things. What is important is that inventory data are independently checked. Because of that, we set up a little framework within this CDRED project to review the greenhouse gas inventories that have been developed in this project. The main objective of that process is to assist with countries by simulating real-world quality assurance. This process is based on UNFCCC and IPCC principles that we have just heard from Kyoto, but we simplified the methodology of the reviews, and we wanted to cover all CDRED countries. The review has not been completed yet. It is ongoing, but sooner or later it will really cover all CDRED countries. The review is a multiple-way exercise in which the first inventory that the inventory teams in the countries produce are just draft inventories, and then an expert review team reads that draft inventory, puts questions, gets answers from the inventory team, and after that the inventory review team provides the country with a review report that includes comments and advice how the country can develop the inventory and correct possible errors. Then the inventory team in the country revises the draft inventory and then produces hopefully a better inventory. And it is only then when the inventory can be disseminated either within the country or possibly outside of the country. Now, who is this expert review team? This team consists of 4 people. Sandro is one. Joachim Rock from Germany is a second person. Rassak from Mauritius is the third expert, and I'm the 4th expert. Most of us are mostly used to European forests like this, but it is me who has taken this picture too in the Amazon region, so we also know something about tropical forests, but the main thing that we have experience in developing greenhouse gas inventories, and here we are talking about greenhouse gas inventories. So one element of this process was that the CDRED team set up this expert review team, and one of the most important tasks that we completed was that we harmonized our approaches towards this review process what the simplification means, how we should assist with countries with ideas and comments and suggestions. Also, all CDRAT countries were informed about this process, so it was not a surprise that their inventory has been or will be reviewed, and so this completes the big picture about this review. What were the main questions we started to check in the inventories? The same things that Kiyoto listed, whether the inventory is transparent or not. And our experience so far has been that this transparency needs improvement, partly to increase the credibility of the inventories. Are these inventories complete in the sense of the IPCC terminology? And I can report to you that yes, mostly, generally, these inventories are complete. What is about the quality of these inventories? I think the quality is reasonable. We also checked previous inventories in national communications, so we can see that there is a considerable improvement, but we agree that the quality should be further improved. We can also see from the new inventories the effort and the motivation to produce better inventories. The main challenges still remain data availability and national systems. And we suggest that priority in data collection should be given to the source of the at least potentially highest emissions, for instance, the forest inventory, because most inventories include emissions from agriculture and other sources. Let me speak a bit more about these two crucial elements, data and national systems. What we see is that in many cases there are no country-specific data available for these inventories, but there are a lot of international organizations that produce or maintain databases. We heard a nice presentation yesterday about Faustat databases, but there are other ones, and these may be used, no problem with that, and often they are used. However, sometimes we found country-specific data that are a bit far from the data in these international databases, so maybe it's a good idea to always check national data with these international data. But in many cases, country-specific data seem to be reasonable. In case you have country-specific data, then it is preferred that you use them. In one country, there is a very nice project producing forest inventory information, but that data has been not used in the greenhouse gas inventory. It's a pity. It should be improved. Yesterday, I liked very much the comment by Tom Wirth about national systems. He said that a solid national system is a very good basis to work with inventories, that you can always improve these solid, although maybe simplified systems. And what we see from the recent inventories is that the inventory preparation has not yet been based on such solid systems, only partly. Sometimes what is needed is not necessarily more money, but more communication within the countries or even between neighboring countries. And I think the idea was raised yesterday that neighboring or other countries can set up a system in which they review the inventory of each other, and each country would benefit from this process. Consistency means that you have data over time, but the quality of the data should be the same over time, which requires that you archive not only the data, but also all other information that was used to develop that data. Don't throw out of the window very useful and valuable work that you have done. So we suggest that you put an emphasis on archiving. And it's also very nice to see that the quality assurance, quality checking within a country has developed a lot. I can't go into more details. We have, in addition to several pages of text to each country, a rather long table with a lot of details. Each country will have these details to use in developing their inventory. The last point I want to make is that all we want with this process is to assist with countries. This assistance may provide valuable feedback and information for the inventory teams. It may highlight technical issues or problems to solve. It may flag signs where capacities should be further developed. These have been may sentences, but I'm pretty sure that the review process will contribute to achieving compliance with international standards. So I'm confident that this process will contribute to the success of result-based funding. Thank you very much.
We have a moderator of the panel, which is Jagdish Kiswan, who is the Chief Policy Advisor of the Wildlife Trust of India and the former Additional Director General of Wildlife, Government of India, and Director General of Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education. And he's also been a member of the core negotiation group of the Government of India on forestry issues, in particular those related to RED at SOPSTA and COP meetings of the UNFCCC. Jagdish, you have the floor. I hope you will introduce the rest of the panel members.
Thank you, Meti, for that introduction and for leading the three presenters in the beginning of this session. Of course, I don't have the brief about the panelists with me about their introduction, but when they start speaking, they will first start with their own introduction, and that will be the process that will follow. Now, going back to the presentations that we have had, three of these, it goes without saying that Warsaw COP was the watershed in bringing to culmination what we have been negotiating and discussing for the last so many years. It was for the first time that the COP showed us the real path as to how we can get our RED+ actions incentivized. And of course, as Thelma has said, that it was 7 RED+ decisions came in one COP, which is unprecedented, in fact, unbelievable. In some COPs, we had only half the decision, because next half went to the next COP. The most important decisions, as Thelma and other colleagues have already underlined, are 2 decisions. One is on the MRV, modalities for MRV, and the second one is on the technical assessment of the submissions which are made by the RED+ countries on the forest reference level. I also will use only reference levels, because that means, reference emission levels also. And that was the second most important decision. So what should I be saying is that COP has done its job. Now the ball is in the court of the RED+ countries as to how we can encash as to what has been decided by the COP in its Warsaw session. Now, the 3 presenters which started the ball rolling for this panel discussion came out very clearly on the important Warsaw COP decisions, which Thelma, of course, my old standing colleague, made the presentation about, and who was, in fact, ably supported by Kiyoto by bringing in the relevance of the IPCC guidelines right from 1995 and going right up to 2006 as to how relevant these are in making the submissions by the countries, in preparing inventories, and of course, I would always say in claiming the incentives in due course of time. And of course, Zoltán, he did give us an idea about the lessons which have been learned from the CD RED review process that has been taking place for last about 3-4 years, am I right, or 7 years? Oh, 1 year only. So it's, I mean, it's an achievement that you have come out with such a good amount of learning. Now, in fact, to lead this panel discussion, I have drafted the 3 questions, and of course, it was a little confusion also because I had already given some input for these questions to the panelists and to the presenters. But then in the night I got one email from Johansson, maybe which was Kevin's idea. And then in the night I started marrying my questions and the questions which came in the night. And then this marriage took some time of mine. And ultimately I have come out with 3 questions, which is kind of a marriage between the questions which were forwarded by Kevin and company, Johansson, and which were originally circulated by me. So what we'll do is that the process that we are going to follow is that I have 3 questions, but we'll open the floor for the panelist only for question 1 first, then question 2, then question 3, so that everything does not get jumbled and this marriage of questions does not go astray. So the first question which I have for the panelists is that, which according to you are the most important decisions of the Warsaw Framework for RED Plus that would enable RED Plus countries receive result-based payments for RED Plus actions in due course of time? I need not say that this is the easiest question that I have for the panelists. But what I will do is that, Thelma, you know too well about this, so I'll go to the panelists who really have not made the presentation so far. And I have with me Akintayo. Can I start with you? Akintayo will first give his response to the question that I have just come out with, and then he'll be followed by my old standing colleague, Eduardo Reis. And then, of course, the panelists will also, the presenters will also follow. But you have to introduce yourself first. No, that is the, yes. Akintayo.
Thank you. Jagdish, Professor Jagdish. My name is Akin Adidoyin, and I'm not the Deputy Director as advertised in the program here. I'm standing in for the national focal point for the UNFCCC in Botswana, who has genuine reasons for not being here, not because he's having a second son, but because he's actually engaged in some other national assignment. So I'm standing in for the Director of Meteorological Services, that's Mr. Botsoma. My background is that I have a PhD in tropical tropospheric dynamics of mesoscale systems. And that one naturally led me into climate change issues, especially in my postdoctoral involvement with the TAMSAT project of the University of Reading. My university, University of Botswana, recognizing that I have interest in climate change, nominated me to represent the institution in Botswana National Climate Change Committee. And in that position, the committee decided that I should handle or coordinate the greenhouse gas inventory for Botswana. Hence, my involvement with RED and ESA projects and other things like that. I was not there at Warsaw, but to actually respond to the question that has been posed, I think one of the things that we should actually focus on, that we can take as something that came vividly that we can embrace from Warsaw, to my own mind, will be the indicators of quality as already espoused by the panelists. All the points, transparency, completeness, even with the possibility of non-precise definition for it, and I'll come to that in a minute, consistency, comparability, and accuracy. But when we look at this one, the challenge that we could face in the developing countries will be transparency may not be so much of a problem. If you take completeness to mean something that is reproducible, again, it may not present much of a problem. But where the problem it will be the ambiguity in definitions. For instance, it took a while for us on the continent of Africa to actually maybe come, not really a consensus, some kind of understanding of what forest is. And that was a challenge for us for a while. So if you really want some kind of comparability, there must be some definition that is unambiguous before you can compare. And I think that is one of the things that when we try to present things to students, we say when you define something, it must not vary with time and space, but it seems as if there is no consistency in that particular one, which may be something that will militate against the tapping into this result-based finance, especially for those of us who are coming from Africa. Now, we have always underscored the issue of small teams, limited resources, and responsibilities on the continent. That one is something that we can overcome, and I think that we are on the verge of overcoming that at different levels in different countries. Data gaps, yes, those ones, and land use maps. Not many countries on the continent have land use maps. And that one, again, is a challenge for us, although this has been prescribed, but we need help. Some countries have done it, Botswana has done it, but there are not many countries that have done that kind of thing on the continent. And a major challenge is it is easier to say that you integrate all these things into policy. It's easier said than done. Because not all those who are in the sciences are in the position of the policy-making level on the continent. And although you want some data, you can go to, as we are discussing just over lunch or during the tea break, the data could be available, but because you do not belong to the community, you are denied access to it. And this is where the international community can draw alongside to actually find a way around such problems, and I'm speaking for developing countries, especially the continent of Africa, so that if you have a national forest monitoring system that would be able to stand and be able to tap, benefit from what Warsaw, what was decided at Warsaw, all these things have to be actually taken into consideration and worked on. Use of IPCC guidelines, we are very far into doing that one, because I think that one will be something that, again, we can take from Warsaw to say all countries have to use these guidelines for consistency, and that is something that we want to underscore. The drivers for deforestation, we cannot have a global prescription of that kind of definition. And these are areas that we need to sit down and negotiate and maybe come to a sort of compromise. Well, what the drivers for deforestation and forest degradation will be, because, as I said, if you don't have any consistency, if any issue is unambiguous in its definition and interpretation, then it is difficult for all parties to be able to tap into this resource that we so much really from the 7 points that were decided in Warsaw. Just to begin with, I think, Mr. Coordinator, those will be just my overview of all the points that I would like to start with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Akintayo. Maybe you have answered my next questions also partly, but again, I'll come back to you. You did indicate the indicators of quality, but one thing where maybe Thelma will not be in agreement with you, and maybe I'm also not in agreement with you, is the question of comparability, because insofar as RED plus performance is concerned, comparability does not figure in there, and it was with purpose that this was removed. But I do take your point that you are saying comparability in some other sense, that the data should be as good as possible. Countries may have their own comparability, but in this sense of the COP decision, this comparability does not figure in the RED plus decision. Now it's over to Eduardo to respond to the first question.
Thank you, Yadish. For those that doesn't know me, my name is Eduardo Reyes. I'm from Panama. I guess I did something right since coalition requested me to join them in year 2010. I was involved in climate change since, I guess, year 2000, was Deputy Minister of Environment of my country for 5 years. And then I am independent consultant, working with coalition as well. In this red battle, at least we get to a conclusion in Warsaw with 7 decisions that everyone was quite happy to have them. After, I guess, from 2005 that we started, Kevin, yes? Yeah, 9 years, more or less, and we still have to go. Anyway, I mean, regarding to your question, Yadish, I guess, I mean, the 7 decisions to me are very important. It's not only one. I mean, if I have to highlight one, obviously I might highlight one that probably was the most controversial, and that was the modality of the MRV. But all the 7 decisions were very, very important. Anyway, saying so, and obviously we have an excellent presentation, as usual, from Thelma regarding to MRV. And I just want to highlight a little bit on the V of the MRV that caused some, let's say, some different positions from different countries. And actually, especially, I would say that those countries that are seeking to obtain the payment for results actions, which is important for a lot of developing countries, especially the Coalition for Rainforest Nation. And this country fought a lot for this kind of decision. And obviously, how do we verify all this? Whatever we are going to put, we have talked about transparency, consistency, comparability, or completeness, and accuracy. I mean, and it's hard to differentiate from the last presentation, which is a review of the greenhouse gas inventory, which I'm also quite happy to listen the Kiyoto presentation, that sometimes we don't know where we're going to get all the data, where we're going to get the methodology, because it's very clear that the IPCC methodologies are there to be used and almost cover everything that we have to do. It's a lot of work that we still have to do. But yes, I mean, the review is something important because it's helping on the receiving red countries to move forward, to start having a learning by doing experience on how we are preparing ourselves. But then when we come to the V, I mean, it's from Cancun decision, we have that the ICA will review and do the verifications of what we're going to be presenting on our biennial update reports. But then we also were fighting to avoid bringing more overburden to RED Plus that is already placed. And this was very important achieved, I guess, in the modality of MRV in Warsaw. I mean, we could say that 2 technical experts, LULUCF experts, from the roster of experts, could do it. One from developing country and one from developed country, as Thelma presented in his presentation. This is, to me, a very important point that we would like to highlight, because sometimes red countries were feeling that a bunch of people were going to review and requesting a lot of things. We have had a lot of experience with the different ongoing activities that are for red, which has helped us a lot, but the requirements are still, hard to meet. And I'm glad that yesterday Costa Rica did an excellent presentation because they are a pioneer in this issue. And they are going even beyond actually the decisions that has been agreed. I mean, they are overpassing all those requirements. But, this, at least, is a very important aspect of those decisions. Measurement consistent with data requirements for estimating emissions and removals based on IPCC guidance. Kiyoto did a very good explanation or presentation on how do we have to do that. The reporting is based on our national communications and views. As well, then we have views, guidelines also how to report on so. It's very clear from COP decision to CP70, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It has to be consistent with the capability of developing countries. But it's also important the level of support provided. This is a key issue that is also a fight from developing countries. We would like to improve our greenhouse gas inventory. We would like to improve our national communication. We would like to improve our report, which is the first one we have to do it this year. But I'm not quite sure how is, up to this moment, the level of support that most of developing countries have received. That also have a direct results in how are we going to present all our results that we're putting together for REDS. So I'll stop here because this is an important point that I would like to highlight. From the 7 decisions that, as I said from the beginning, they are all important. We need them all, but we also need the support, the financial support to implement them. And actually, obviously, will help the RED countries to move forward. And I'm happy at this point that from 2004, 2005, this idea came into, again, back into the international arena. I have seen countries' presentation yesterday, today, and some other dates that developing countries have improved a lot. It's still a long road to go, but I'm pretty sure we will achieve the objectives. Thank you, Jadish. Leave it there.
Thank you, Eduardo. And as you say that it's not that there is some decision which is not really required. All the decisions are there because the parties wanted it. So all the decisions are certainly important. And what you underlined at the end, it is the technical and other resources support which is still required for the developing countries to build their capacity to implement these important decisions. So that's a very good point which you have come out with. So now I'll go to the presenters from here, and I would request, I have got one more. Sorry. Who did not present? Yes, it's to you, and please introduce yourself and give a response on the first question.
Yeah.
Robert Bamful from Ghana.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Jagdish. I am the head of the Forest and Climate Change Unit of the Forestry Commission, and also the head of the RED Plus Secretariat within the Forestry Commission of Ghana, and a key RED Plus negotiator at the UNFCCC level. Yeah, regarding the question that you posed, I think in Warsaw we had a complete package to enable RED countries to prepare themselves for results-based actions and payments. It was a mix of technical and policy decisions, and some aspects were institutional. So if you want to assess results-based finance, countries will have to equip themselves with these requirements and how best they can meet these requirements under the UNFCCC. Fortunately, we do have the IPCC guidelines that right from the beginning, from the inventory stage, we've been able to put together some greenhouse gas data and information, leading us to develop other systems, such as the National Forest Monitoring System, and also to enable us construct our forest reference emission level or forest reference level, and also helping us to calculate results in terms of tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year. So with this kind of package, we will be able to meet these criteria for assessing results-based finance. And if countries lack the capacities to put in place such systems that will churn out the data and information required for assessing REDD+ finance, it is necessary that they do their capacity needs assessment to enable them achieve these elements for results-based finance. As I said, it is a package to ensure environmental quality. And countries will be financed based on the results that they achieve. And results here are being measured. They are measurable. That is why it is required that countries have a system for measuring, reporting, and verifying whatever results they claim to have achieved. In the MRV, there are elements for measurement provided by the UNFCCC guidelines. There are elements for reporting also embedded in the UNFCCC guidelines, which was part of the Warsaw decision. And we also have elements for verification, which are all provided in the guidelines under the UNFCCC decisions. All that is required is for REDD countries to build their capacities to achieve such elements in order to assess results-based finance. And the results that you will generate will have to be transparent. They will also have to be consistent with these guidelines that I've mentioned, both the IPCC guidelines and the UNFCCC guidance. They will also have to be complete and, as much as possible, have to be accurate. The key word here is transparency and consistency. Whatever guidance or whatever methodological guidance that you use for your greenhouse inventory should be consistent with whatever guidance that you're using or whatever methods that you are using for the forest reference emission levels, and this should reflect in your MRV as well. So all that we're doing borders on consistency. If you have a national forest definition, that is what you're going to use all through to generating your results-based actions. There is no point changing your forest definition to meet one requirement or the other. It has to be consistent all through. The data that you churned out in your inventory data collection will be the same data and information that will guide you or will be used for constructing your reference emission level as well as your MRV. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And I like the phrase which you used in describing the Warsaw framework for REDD+ decisions. You said it's a complete package of, I noted down, and right mix of technical, policy, and institutional decisions. I am in complete agreement with what you said. and maybe others also. But you did bring out at the end that there is need for capacity building also for the RED Plus countries to put their submission, to put their report, and to claim incentives also. Thank you very much for that. And now I will go to the presenters, and I will request them that please take at least possible time, because I see the participants are getting a little restive. So Thelma, can we start with you?
Yes, thank you, Jagdish. I will try to be very, very quick and very objective. To me, the two main decisions in Warsaw was the one that refers to the reference levels, because that's the starting point of everything. So if we don't have the reference levels, and if we don't have what we achieved in Warsaw, which is the guidelines for the assessment of the reference level, the composition of the team, how is it going to be, the report, the interaction, all these was extremely necessary to kick off action in the countries. So we know that it's going to be one session per year. We know there is one this year. Many countries are already mobilizing themselves to start, developing their reference levels to submit still this year for evaluation. And that's going to be, in my understanding, a pilot phase, a learning process from both sides. But someone has to kick off. And from that, we will incrementally improve the process. That's one. And then I have to agree with Eduardo that the most contentious one, and it was a relief when we agreed on the verification part of MRV. That was very, very difficult. And I'm very pleased with the results. Because if you look at the technical annex, it has to be, data and information has to be complete. And if you have a footnote on completeness, it means there the provision of information that allows the reconstruction of the results. And that's going to be posted in the web platform, available for anyone to see this. So it's not a selective group of people. It's an assessment that we allow anyone to look what we are doing. So if I may refer very quick, in Brazil, when we do the deforestation assessment every year, all the information is posted, and the data is reconstructed by NGOs, by the state secretaries, and if there is any discrepancy, we interact to see what's going on. So it's that's, to me, is the best level of verification that one can have, where anyone can assess what you are doing and how you have achieved to your results. So to me, those are the major elements that we have achieved, and achieving that was not easy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Thelma. And what you said at the end, it's the transparency also which matters, because you have to be so transparent that the data is available to all. Can we move on to Kiyoto and then to Zoltán?
Yep. Thank you. I believe all the decisions are important. So let me rephrase it. The most impressive decision to me. The most impressive one to me, because I'm working for inventory, and it was a decision on modalities for MRV. That provides the guidelines for technical annex to the BURs, and also that sets the scope of technical analysis by the TTE in relation to the RED Plus activities for those countries who wish to have the results-based finance. I think this decision on modalities for MRV is important or impressive, not because it's perfect, it's good enough, but because it provides a basis for further elaboration. So that is why I think that decision was the most impressive to me. That's all.
Thank you, Kiyoto, and thank you for using that phrase, most impressive decision. Agreed. Yes, Zoltán?
Thank you. Robert very wisely used the word complete package. I share that view. So if that package were a building, it would be very difficult to get out just one brick. Otherwise, everything would collapse. So I wouldn't name any particular decision, but I would like to make reference to all the elements of the package that are related to the IPCC guidelines. Imagine you had to develop a greenhouse gas inventory from scratch. I think it would be very difficult. For me, it would be impossible. But if you think about what the guidelines, IPCC guidelines, contain as information, as results of lots of efforts over time, then you may agree with me that using these guidelines are a very important step ahead in establishing your reference level, in assessing your results, and in knowing what you can expect from any technical assessment. And in the end, you can make sure that, well, maybe not the most accurate result what you will achieve, but certainly you will have the best result concerning all what we have in terms of technicalities around RED+. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zoltán, for that. And I have received a note from the Madam Chairperson that we really don't have much time left. So what we'll do is that I have got two questions. So I could have made it into one question, but they are a little longish. So the panelists and the presenters will get 1.5 minutes each to respond to each of these two remaining questions. So the question number 2 is, and now we'll start from this end. Zoltán will get it again. We are starting from this end. In your view, do the RED+ countries have requisite capacity to implement COP19 decision, or let me say most impressive decision on modalities for MRV? What kind of technical assistance these countries will require to build capacity to prepare the first draft of the technical annex on the RED+ performance, which is to be annexed with the BUR? So Zoltán, very quickly.
Thank you. Very quickly, I think I touched upon several issues concerning the review process. I believe that if countries really make use of the feedback from any body, any team of experts that want to help to check the first drafts, then countries will be able to develop a better second draft, etc., etc. We should never forget that this is an ongoing process. We have to start somewhere, and I think that there are maybe two important elements of all these processes. One is to establish a good national system. This has two main aspects. One is financial, and of course in this regard we need to make a step ahead, but also an organizational and mental element, and it is up to the countries to set up their own system. There are many templates, so to say, out in the world, how other countries have set up their system. You can learn a lot from them. You can always network with neighboring countries. We have done it in the European Union. We have shared experiences. We keep reviewing each other, and that is a very important concept, and you can make use of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zoltán, and straight away I'll go to Kiyoto.
Thank you. To be honest, I have not been very familiar with this RED+ thing, so I don't know very well the real situation of RED+ countries. But based on my experience as a member of UNFCCC CGE, I guess that not many countries have sufficient capacity yet. So absolutely, training or capacity building exercise will be necessary. And currently, there are a lot of opportunities for capacity building on national greenhouse gas inventories provided by various organizations. And as we have seen, there is close link between inventory and REDD+ forest-related emissions estimation. So I think firstly, we can think of capacity building on REDD+ activities associated with inventory capacity building. So we can take advantage of those existing training on national greenhouse gas inventories also for those who are working for REDD+ activities. I think that's one of the way forward.
Thank you. And Robert, very quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, REDD+ countries are in different stages of readiness. With regard to the development of an MRV system. For those countries that are still in the initial readiness phase, they will need capacity building to progress to the second phase, which is very crucial for preparedness to access resource-based finance. In fact, they will have to be technically equipped and also the technical knowledge enhanced to operate such an MRV system. And as I said in my earlier response, there will have to be the need for a capacity needs assessment of these REDD countries to know the stages in which they are and their capacity building requirements. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Thelma, very quickly.
1.5 minutes. I think the negotiators have been very aware of the need of flexibility, and this is reflected in decisions, in the stepwise approach, also for the reference levels and also for the results. So this is a process where I would say that even if it's difficult to say that a country is not ready because of this flexibility in terms of getting better with time. So we should start somewhere and should indicate improvements through time. Now, obviously the capacity building is an important process. And I'm going to be very honest here. We have several initiatives for capacity building. We have CD-RED, we have the World Bank, we have the GU with the GFOI. You have several publications going on. My concern, and this is personal, is that sometimes what you see is beyond what has been agreed by the negotiators. So it's an expectation that whoever is writing is expressed there, but not necessarily is a demand from what comes out from the negotiation process. And so, this is a concern that I particularly have, that whoever is receiving the capacity building should also be aware what has been decided, the decisions that have been taken by the negotiators, and be also selective in the capacity building implementation, let's say, because maybe we are requiring more than would be required even for Annex 1 parties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thelma. And on the sides, I was having the negotiations with the other two panelists, and they have foregone their right to answer to my second question. And straight away, I'm going to third question because of paucity of time. So I'll start from you, Eduardo. The third question is, how do you rate the contribution of CD-RED in capacity building of REDD+ countries on various elements of REDD+ implementation, including understanding of relevant IPCC guidelines? What possible role do you see for CD-RED in building capacity of REDD+ countries post-Warsaw, for example, in preparation of the REDD+ technical annex to the BUR? Eduardo?
Yeah, Jadish, to your question is, let's put it this way. People are talking about capacity building, and this is one of the main aspect that the CD-RED program is bringing to our countries. Another important issue is, I mean, this related to the CD-RED program is the greenhouse gas inventory. I was involved in the first greenhouse gas inventory of my country a long time ago, and we didn't pay too much attention to the LULUCF sector. The CD-RED project is paying a lot of attention to this. It's providing the capacity and the importance why we are doing this greenhouse gas inventory a little bit more detailed, and at the same time creating the understanding that is linked to the negotiations, as Thelma just mentioned, that we don't want to do more than is already requested. So countries are right now realizing where they are, the countries are under this program, where they are, what are the next steps, helping them in institutional arrangement, which is very crucial in several countries. We need to help them to establish that institutional arrangement system that enable them to exchange information, because some information is in one institute, another information is another. But the CD-RED program is bringing this to this developing country, to RED country, and they are understanding the importance of being transparent, consistent. They need to know that they're going to be compared in the future, and obviously they want to be more accurate in the result. So that will be my answer.
Thank you, Eduardo. Akintayo.
Thank you, and very briefly, as rightly pointed out, the level of preparedness and capability of the CD-RED countries do vary, and we do appreciate that one very much. But the concern is, if we take out international donors out of the scheme, how many of the CD-RED countries can actually operate and deliver on MRV on their own? That is where the issue is. And I think that is where we need to actually focus, so that at least in-house, within each country, there must be some measure of responsiveness, there must be some contribution, maybe a budget line or something like that, for all these activities, because in some of the countries, if you take out the international component of the contribution, then there won't be any CD-RED.
Thank you, and it's now not compulsory if you want to respond. Anyone from here? Zoltán, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to highlight three issues. One, just to agree with my colleague, that I think we need to stabilize the capacities that have been built so far, so that countries will be able to develop their upcoming inventories in the future. The second is that there have been, I think, 13 or 14 countries involved in the CD-RED project, and there are many more countries that may need capacity building. So there is a lot of room for development. And the third thing is that to develop a greenhouse gas inventory is not the last product that RED countries must produce. They have to develop reference levels and other tasks they have to do, and in assisting to develop reference levels and others, I think the CD-RED project or similar projects could have a positive impact in the future too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Robert, I think it's okay?
Yeah.
You want to say something?
Quick,
very quickly.
Yeah, the importance of the CD-RED initiative cannot be overemphasized. In fact, capacity building runs through all the phases of readiness. And even those advanced countries still need capacity building in calculating and recalculating their reference emission levels. So, I mean, it has no end. And I would like to encourage the CD-RED proponents or developers to continue with this program, because it is very critical for RED countries to access RED Plus finance. Thank you.
Madam Chairperson, I'll just take 2 minutes in, winding up, as to what we have been discussing. And sorry to the participants from the floor. You will get time, after we close this session, and then you can have, one-to-one discussion with the panelists here. Now, it's amply clear that there is tremendous need for continuous capacity building of countries to make them enable to implement the RED plus Warsaw decisions, so that in due course of time they are able to claim the RED plus incentives. CD-RED, without any doubt, has been doing a very good work for the last so many years in taking care of different aspects of implementation of RED plus decisions, and also building the capacity of the countries to follow relevant IPCC guidelines. And to me, it looks that at this critical juncture, it will be expected of organizations like CD-RED and other organizations that this capacity building exercise should continue for some more years, so that the countries are able to take benefit of the watershed decisions which has come for RED plus implementation in Warsaw. Of course, I am told that CD-RED is getting support from only one country, and of course CD-RED program would like to have that other countries, of course the developed countries, also chip in with their contribution to make their life a little more comfortable of this CD-RED. And I hope that there is always a better future for CD-RED to continue with much more strength. With this, I will end, Madam Chairperson, and I would request that you may take over and conclude this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our facilitator. Thank you very much to our presenters, to our panelists for this very interesting discussion. I'm sorry we didn't get enough chance to have questions and answers, but I'm sure you will grab some of them over coffee.
Thank you for watching. For more information, see cdred.org.